Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a look into Solitary Wicca,
That's right.
specifically through the lens of Scott Cunningham's book, Living Wicca, A Further Guide for the Solitary Practitioner.
Yep, that's the one. Our mission, really, is to kind of unpack the core ideas and, the practices he puts forward for people going it alone on this path.
Exactly. We've been digging into Cunningham's work to see, well, what does he say makes Wicca personal and meaningful when you're not part of a group?
It's all about that direct individual experience.
Okay, let's get started. A big one seems to be dedication. Now, in covens, there are often formal rituals. How does Cunningham frame this for the solitary?
Well, for the solitary practitioner, Cunningham presents dedication as deeply personal, but still really significant.
Significant how?
It's the moment you, as an individual, consciously decide to formally link yourself with the divine. It's about making that commitment, on your own terms.
So it's like a personal statement,
Yeah.
a commitment you make directly.
Precisely. And he describes it as a joyous step, actually, a kind of self-initiation.
Marking the start of your own unique journey.
Right. Because solitary practice is so much about independence, this self-dedication becomes a really powerful symbol of that bond you're forging and the path you've chosen. You're basically the architect here.
That makes sense. You're building your own spiritual house, so to speak.
You could say that, yeah.
And speaking of environments, Cunningham talks about the solitary Wiccan's temple. Now, this isn't necessarily a building, is it?
Not at all. For the solitary, Cunningham says a temple can just be any quiet, private place.
Anywhere you can focus.
Yeah, exactly. A corner of your bedroom, maybe a spot outdoors you like, somewhere you feel, peaceful and can connect inwardly.
So it's less about the actual physical place.
And more about the intention.
Right, the energy you bring to it.
Precisely. He really emphasizes mentally and spiritually transforming that spot into sacred space. It's about focus.
As you mentioned, like physical preparation.
He does. Simple things, like sweeping or tidying up the area first. It can actually help clear your head, get you ready for ritual work.
Okay. Now, something often associated with Wicca is casting a circle. For someone practicing alone, what's Cunningham's take on that? Is it complex?
He calls it casting a simple circle. And for the solitary, it's basically about focusing your personal power.
Not necessarily a big production, then.
Not necessarily, no. It's more a technique to create a temporary bubble of energy. For protection, sure, but also just for better concentration.
Like containing your focus.
Exactly. Think of it as drawing a boundary, but with your energy. It creates this little contained space where your intention is stronger, less disturbed by outside stuff.
So it relies heavily on visualization.
Very much so. He talks about picturing this circle of energy coming from you, surrounding your space. It's a mental construction, really, that holds your energy and keeps distractions out.
It really highlights how much solitary practice seems to depend on, well, your own mind.
It does. The responsibility, the power, it's all centered within the individual.
Okay, fascinating. Let's shift gears to tools. Wicca often brings images of tools to mind atoms, chalices. Are these essential for the solitary practitioner, according to this book?
Cunningham is pretty clear on this. He says magical tools are not strictly necessary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he sees them more as like extensions of your own personal power. They're symbolic aids, they can enhance practice, but the real magic comes from within you.
So they help focus, represent things,
Yeah.
but don't hold power on their own.
That's the idea. But he does go into detail about a lot of common tools that solitaries often find useful.
Like what? Can you give some examples?
Sure. Things like candles, incense stones, cords, wands, pentacles, chalices, even besoms, brooms,
Lots.
and the knives, the bowling, and the mirrors, too. And, of course, books, especially the Book of Shadows.
That's quite a list. Maybe we could touch on the purpose of a few key ones in solitary work, say candles and incense.
Okay. Candles are often used to focus energy. Their colors can represent different things, elements, deities, intentions. Incense is often for purification or raising the energy level of a space. Sometimes it's used as an offering, too.
Makes sense. And what about something like stones or cords?
Stones can be grounding,
Right.
or they might represent specific energies, maybe deities. They're tangible links, Cords are often used for measuring, like the circle boundary, or sometimes symbolically for binding in spells.
Right. And the wand. People often picture a wand.
The wand is generally for directing energy. Then you have the pentacle, usually representing earth and stability. The chalice often represents water, and the goddess.
And the besom, the broom.
That's for ritual cleansing, sweeping away negative energy before you start.
Okay. What about the knives? You mentioned, too, the baleen and the thame.
Yes. The baleen is usually white-handled, and it's a practical knife for
Right.
cutting herbs, carving candles, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The athame, typically black-handled, is different. It's purely for directing energy, like the wand. It's never used for actual physical cutting. That distinction is important.
Got it. One for work, one for energy, and mirrors, books.
Mirrors can be used for scrying divination, basically, but also for inner reflection, self-discovery. And books, well, knowledge is key, right? Especially the Book of Shadows, your personal journal of practice.
So you record spells, experiences, insights.
Exactly. It's vital for learning and growing when you're on your own. What's really key in all this, Cunningham stresses, is your personal connection to the tools.
Ah, right.
Yeah, you might consecrate them, dedicate them to your practice. A tool you make or find might feel more powerful to you than something expensive you buy. It's about that personal link.
It really keeps coming back to that individual connection, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Now, Cunningham seems to stress that Wicca isn't just about belief. It's more active than that.
Oh, definitely. He really hammers home that Wicca is a religion of action, of experience. It's not just sitting around believing things. It's about doing, engaging.
A very hands-on spirituality.
You could put it that way, yeah. He talks about needing to learn through, well, multiple ways. Reading, yes, but also observing nature directly, seeing the cycles, and most importantly, actually practicing, experimenting.
And keeping track of it all.
Yes, that Book of Shadows again. He sees real value in writing down what you do, what happens, what you learn. It helps you see patterns, deepen your understanding. You know, solitary practice takes discipline.
You have to be self-motivated.
Right. You have to commit to learning, set aside time for study, for ritual. It's all on you.
Which brings us to the divine connection. How does a solitary Wiccan connect with the goddess and God without, say, a coven structure?
Cunningham emphasizes that the divine is accessible. Right here, right now.
How so?
In nature, primarily. The wind, the moon, the seasons. He suggests you can connect through personal contemplation, direct experience. You don't need a go-between.
So it fosters a very direct relationship.
Exactly. It's personal, intimate, based on your own understanding, your own feelings. But he does stress reverence and respect in those interactions. It's accessible, but still sacred.
That feels very empowering for someone on a solitary path.
I think it is, yeah.
Okay, let's talk ethics. The Wiccan read is fundamental. How does Cunningham present this for the solitary practitioner?
He brings it right to the forefront. And if harm none, do what you will, that's the guiding principle. Right. And he explains this isn't just about magic, it's about your whole life, your everyday actions, your choices.
It sounds simple, but harm none can get complex, can it?
It can, and he addresses that. Solitary practitioners really need to think about the potential consequences of their actions, especially in magic. Are you causing harm, even unintentionally, to yourself, to others?
So again, personal responsibility is huge.
It's central. You're the one making the choices. You're the one accountable for upholding that ethical standard in your practice.
Makes complete sense. Okay, finally, celebrations. Sabbats, Esbats. How do solitaries approach these according to Living Wicca?
He definitely emphasizes their importance for solitaries, too. The 8 Sabbats, the seasonal festivals marking the wheel of the year, and the Esbats, the moon rituals, they're just as significant when you're practicing alone.
But presumably the way you celebrate might be different.
Absolutely. He stresses that these celebrations can and really should be personalized, adapted for your own individual practice. You don't need a big group gathering.
So you still connect with the themes?
Yes. The Sabbats still mark the turning seasons, life, death, rebirth. The Esbats still honor the moon's energy, good times for magic or reflection. But the how is up to you.
That offers a lot of freedom, actually.
It does. That's a hallmark of the solitary path he describes, the freedom and the creativity it allows, even within these traditional structures.
Okay, so let's try and sum up this deep dive into Cunningham's Living Wicca for solitaries. What are the big takeaways?
Well, I think it really boils down to that emphasis on personal connection with the divine, with nature. It's about self-reliance, ethical practice based on the read, creating your own sacred space, using tools as aids but not necessities, committing to learning and practice, and really personalizing how you celebrate the cycles.
That seems like a really solid foundation. It sounds like Cunningham's work really empowers the individual to forge their own path within Wicca.
I'd say that's exactly right. It gives you a framework, but encourages you to build something meaningful for yourself within it.
So for you listening, maybe a final thought to ponder.
Yeah.
Regardless of your own spiritual path, how could you create a dedicated sacred space in your life, even just a small corner?
Yeah, and think about intention. How can consciously setting intentions, like solitary Wiccans do, shape your own practices, your actions, your connection to the world?
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.